Good morning, church.
Good morning.
We'll start this morning with our scripture reading. Thou hast dealt well with thy servant, O Lord, according unto thy word. Teach me good judgment and knowledge, for I have believed thy commandments. Before I was afflicted, I went astray, but now have I kept thy word. Thou art good, and doest good. Teach me thy statutes. The proud have forged a lie against me, but I will keep thy precepts with my whole heart. Their heart is as fat as grease, but I delight in thy law. It is good for me that I have been afflicted, that I might learn thy statutes. The law of thy mouth is better unto me than thousands of gold and silver. I have read to you from the 119th division of Psalms, verses 65 through 72. And may the Lord add a blessing to the reading and hearing of his word. Amen. Dear God, among us, we gather in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, to learn love for one another. Keep our feet from evil paths. Turn our minds to your wisdom and our hearts to grace revealed in your Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen. Amen. And with that, I will call, and I believe it's you, right, Deacon? I'll call Deacon Mike up to share Sunday school lesson with us.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning. Beautiful day out there. Last weekend of summer. Well, actually, I think summer ended yesterday. Who cares? I don't care. I just thought it would be interesting to somebody. Today's lesson, Moses at the burning bush. Now, we know the story. We know the story because we've heard it before. We've actually seen part of it on television, at least the director's rendition of it. We got the word to fill in the correct holes and everything, but we still need to know this because there are a lot of different things in this lesson. The lesson was really I thought it was a very interesting lesson the way it was presented, and I had a good time studying for it. Today, like I said, today is Moses at the burning bush, Exodus, the 3rd chapter, verses 1 through 10. And let's just talk about right now today's aim is facts to see that God manifested himself to Moses in a special, visible way and called him as his chosen deliverer for his covenant. Now, the principle is to understand that God knows the needs of his people and that in his own perfect time, he is sure to answer their cries. Application is to remember that although God may not manifest himself to us as he did Moses, we should take courage and comfort that he knows all about our needs and will provide for us in powerful and amazing ways. Again, like I said, the lesson is broken down into four parts. The Lord's servant, verse 1. The Lord's appearance, Exodus 3, 2 through 6. The Lord's plan, Exodus 3, 7 through 9. And the last section, the Lord's call, Exodus 3 and 10. Let us start out by going around the room and reading the scripture. I'm going to call on Sister Ann Hardy. Can you please give me verses 1 and 2, please?
Now Moses kept the flock of Jericho, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led his flock to the backside of the desert, and came to the mountain of God, even to Hebrew. And the angels
Even to where?
Hebrew.
Horeb.
And the angels of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burnt with fire, and the bush was not consumed.
All right, thank you. Sister Gay, can you read 3 and 4, please?
And Moses said, I will not turn aside and see this great sight, while the bush is not burning. And when the Lord saw that, he turned aside to see. God called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, here am I.
All right, thank you.
Amen.
Sister Ann, 5 and 6, please.
And he said, Run not nigh hither. Put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place where thou standest is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God.
Deacon Prince, 7 and 8, please. Okay. Looking for your cheaters, huh?
Yeah, thank you.
7 and 8, please.
7 and 8. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people, which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their past master. For I know their sorrow, and I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, to bring them up out of that land unto a good land, and a large unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites.
All right. Sister Brenda, can you read for us number 10 after you help with Christina with 9, please?
Now, therefore, behold, the cry unto oppression with Egyptian oppressed. Come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt.
Amen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The first section is basically just one verse, the Lord's servant. And the Lord's servant, as we know, is Moses. Now, some of this stuff about just even though it's only one, it has some things that were interesting to me rather. And I want to back up to last week's lesson. Last week we were talking, we discussed Moses as he fled Egypt after he killed a man who was harming a fellow Israelite. He thought he was getting away with it, but he didn't get away with it. It was seen, it was known, and he said, I better get out of here. And so he fled Egypt, and he wound up in this land right here. And now, verse 221 was when he got there. First of all, 16 says, now the priest of Midian, that's where he fled to. He fled to Midian. Had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. Now notice, they were not shepherdesses. They were the ones who were leading the sheep. Okay? Now, of course, then you read, and the shepherds came, male shepherds came, and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. So he came to the rescue. He did not particularly care too much for them running roughshod over those women. So fast forward down to verse 20, and he said unto his daughters, and this is Jethro, or Ruel as he's called in here, but it is Jethro. And where is he? Why is it that ye have left the man? Call him that he may eat bread. And Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses Zipporah his daughter. Now, interesting, he was content now. He's happy as a clam. Even though he was once a prince in Egypt, now he is, quote, a lowly shepherd. And even though it's such a huge drop, he was content in the state that he was in. Now, where have we heard that before? Okay, now, according to the expositor, we're talking about Mount Horeb. Mount Horeb is the same as Sinai, Mount Sinai. And according to the expositor, the location is, quote, uncertain. Okay? Now, yeah, it's uncertain to us because they don't really know exactly where all these places are because they can't seem to locate them. But they're here. They're here someplace. All right, again, like I said earlier, Moses went from a prince in Egypt to a shepherd. Now, I wanted to read something about what was number 1 said. It said Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert, and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb. Now, interesting. It says right here, it was the custom of shepherds to take their flocks long distances from home for weeks and months, seeking new pasture grounds. He couldn't have done that. It couldn't have been done like that with his daughters. His daughters may have been taken advantage of. Just to clean it up a little bit. They may have been taken advantage of, and his flock is scattered and everything. But with Moses, obviously he could take care of himself because he beat down those other guys that was trying to take over that well when the daughters were trying to water the flock. So with Moses, they were able to go all over the place with Moses. And they went to the backside of Horeb. Now, the backside of Horeb, again, in the expositor, it said the location is not really certain. It's not really certain. So, I saw something on the internet, and there are certain people who claim to have found, as if it was already lost or anything, found the mountain of God, found where it is. We can discuss that later. I don't know for sure, but we can discuss that later. I I got something on that. I'll share with you guys later if you want. Now, that's all I have for the Lord's servant, other than that the Lord's servant is now learning a new trade. Well, he's learned a new trade. He's experiencing a new trade now, and he's been doing this for 40 years now. Because remember, when he left Egypt, he was 40 years old. Now, fast forward, this man is 80 years old now. Talk about a change in career from the highest to the lowest. Because shepherds were not considered, they were not held in high esteem. Anyway, that's what I had to share about that particular one verse. And I was wondering if anyone else had anything that they wanted to share that they picked up that either I haven't discussed, or something that they may want to ask. Anyone? Okay, Sister Brenda.
We should, when I read this, the first thing that came to my mind is that we on a journey, and that journey, we don't know what's down the line, but God do. And so it's a lot of things that happen to us is to prepare us for what God wants us to use. Because if someone had told me I was going to be driving today, I said, not me, I'm not getting under their wheel. That's what I said, I'm never going to drive. And guess what? You don't know.
That's true. That's true. And you're right. And God has, well, I read something in here that said sometimes even the most menial thing that we do actually is preparing us for something ahead. Right, thank you. And the only thing I could think of is that, well, I don't know of any, quote, menial thing that I do that can help me, but, you know, I don't know what the future holds totally. I know where I'm going. I know where I'm ultimately going, but I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what God may or may not want me to do. I don't know what He's preparing me for, but I know that I am being prepared for something, because we all have a purpose.
That's right.
Anyone else? Okay, second section is the Lord's appearance, and that's verses 2 through 6. The angel of the Lord appeared unto him, unto Moses, in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burnt. Now, for me, first thing I thought about was Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But that's many years down the line. But still, I thought about them. They were in the fiery furnace, and they were not burned because God was with them. And I had to laugh about that because that was the first thing I thought about. So I said, let me go look that up. And I looked at, it was the 3rd chapter of Daniel. And I said, I was going to bring some of that stuff out. And I said, that whole chapter, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that to the class. So what I decided to do, I just said, I'm just going to skip that portion of it. I'm just going to bring it out. That's the first thing that I thought of, that God did that years later with man, with 3 men, 3 young Hebrew boys. But one thing about the burning bush was, and the expositor brought it out also, that it was a theophany. Remember the term theophany? Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And in case anyone didn't really know what a theophany is, it was a theophany, a visible appearance of the Lord in some form. Okay? That's what it says here in the expositor. So, I was looking at that, and I said, okay, I'll just bring out the fact that the quote angel of the Lord. It didn't say, and then I heard something this morning, and it said, notice it didn't say an angel. It said the angel. The angel. So we know an angel is, quote, a messenger. Okay? And in this case, I seriously believe that it was the pre-incarnate Christ in a form with the bush. Okay? So anyway, getting on to verse 4 and 5. And when the Lord saw that he, Moses, turned aside to see, God called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Draw nigh hither, put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereon while thou standest is holy ground. Now, Moses turned to see why the bush was not consumed. God called him by name. Okay, now we're going to take a little detour here. Let's go to Isaiah, the 43rd chapter. And we're going to start at verse 1. But now, thus saith the Lord that created thee, O Jacob, that he that formed thee, O Israel, fear not, for I have redeemed thee. I have called thee by thy name, thou art mine. When thou passest through the waters, I will be with thee, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow thee. Okay, that was talking about the crossing of the Red Sea. When thou walkest through the fire, thou shalt not be burned, neither shall the flame kindle upon thee. For I am the Lord thy God, the Holy One of Israel. Now, I also looked at that. That kind of like piqued my interest. And removing of the shoes was a symbol of laying aside all pollutions, because that was holy ground. It was sanctified because God was there. Now, again, in the expositor, there's something that I wanted to read. It says, in Christ, we are welcomed into God's presence. Think about that. In Christ, we're welcome to God's presence. Now, Christ had not come and died yet. So therefore, you have to approach God in the manner in which he says here, because that's what it is. That's what he said. And we'll have a better covenant later. However, we must never take such an invitation lightly. When we come before him, we must recognize his holy nature and our own dependence upon his mercy and grace for every blessing we possess. Now, like I said earlier, through Jesus we have a better covenant, and let's go there. Let's go to Hebrews, the 4th chapter. Verse 14, I think it was also mentioned in here, what? Hebrews the 4th chapter. Hebrews the 4th chapter, verses 14 through 16.
Okay.
Seeing that we have a great high priest that is passed into the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast our profession, for we have not an high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin. 16. Let us therefore come boldly into the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. See how it is much easier for us to come into the presence of God, as opposed to what was in the Old Testament, because it was through Jesus. He looks at us through Jesus. So when we are in Jesus, he looks at us through Jesus. Interesting. In Jesus, he looks at us through Jesus. And that's one of the better, that's one that shows that we have a much better covenant than what was displayed here in Exodus. Number 6, verse 6. Moreover, he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. Yeah. Back then, it was fearful that a person would die if they look upon the face of God. But again, let's stay in the book of Exodus, but let's go to chapter 33. Only one verse. Now remember here in that we just read, I'm going to read it again. Moreover, he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. Okay? He was afraid to look upon God. Exodus 33, verse 11. Now this is the part that I had to smile, I had a big smile on my face when I thought about this. You can read this whole section from verse 8 all the way down to 11, but I just picked verse 11 specifically. And the Lord spake unto Moses face to face, as a man speaketh unto his friend. That's because God and Moses had a relationship now. Yeah. Just like we have a relationship through Jesus. We have a relationship. Now, when I saw that, the first thing I thought about was my best friend. My best friend. I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, I remember those days in which, you know, you have this friendly rapport with someone that you know so well. And again, like we play basketball every day, almost every day. And if no matter what, it just seems like no matter what, I knew what he was thinking, and he knew what I was thinking. And without even looking, without even saying anything, a pass would go off. It would be either to me or to him from me. And we just gelled so well together. Now, I thought about that and said, it's such a good thing to have a good relationship with someone, a very good, strong relationship with someone. And in this case, it's even better. The best thing possible is to have a great relationship with God. And if you skip down from 11 down to 18, remember going back up here to when he was afraid to look upon God. In 18, he said, I beseech thee, show me thy glory. He's got a relationship. He has no fear of God. He has reverence, but he has no fear of God because he has a relationship. And yes, he is, quote, the servant of God. He's a servant of God, just like we all are. Even though we are children, we are still servants of God. We serve a righteous and mighty God. That's all there is to it. But even though he is God our Father, we are still serving the Lord. But anyway, I just caught a couple things about that when I was writing my notes down, and I was thinking, wow, I remember those days when you were. I remember those days when you're getting a good when you're building a friendship to the point that you just know what the other person is thinking, especially in the situation in the scenario that I put forth. But anyway, that's what I have for the Lord's appearance. Does anyone have anything they would like to add to that? You're smiling. What is it? Let's hear it. You're smiling. Let's hear it.
I love the way God gives us His Word, and it shows us He don't want us to just say, I don't have nothing to relate to, when it comes to how I'm supposed to live, and He got this here, He wants your attention. And so that first thing came to me is that why we don't take God's Word when it's coming forth just as important. He wants your attention, and he speaks to us through his word.
Mm-hmm.
So when his word comes up, you should have an ear to hear.
You're right.
And
Right.
so I thought about how he had an ear to hear. When he called him, he knows. And I said to myself, God said he's holy. And how would he would want us to respond? And I got Romans 12 and 2.
12 and 2?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it said, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. To have a relationship, we got to actually get to know each other.
Right.
And it's like, my friend I know I would do no harm to him. Nobody had to come and try to tell them anything. He knew this voice.
Mm-hmm.
He
Mm-hmm.
said, my people know my voice.
Right.
And will not follow a stranger. So I get excited because that bush was unusual because it didn't burn up. It kept burning, got his attention. So when we go through trials, it'll get your attention.
Uh-huh.
I hear people that say they don't believe in God, and then I hear them say, oh my God.
Yeah, now you
Got your attention.
now?
Yeah, got your attention. I learned so much about how he speaks to us and he talks to us. But he says, when you hear my voice, you see, he didn't run off trying to tell somebody something. He stayed there to hear
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
what the Lord had to say. Some people hear the Lord's voice and they out there running to tell, and what you telling? Stay and hear what he got to say.
Look, another thing too, what he's got to say for you. Remember when
Go.
oh no. Paul.
Yeah.
When Paul was blinded, they didn't hear the words. People around him didn't hear it, but he heard it. He was so what was for him was for him, and not for the people on the outside.
That's right.
The Lord.
Yes.
Just like you said about your friendship, you know what I mean? Yeah. Bond.
Yeah.
Right. That's why God tell us, you should be not God in us from childhood. Your parents bring you up.
Mm-hmm.
From childhood. So bring your child up anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So once you connect with your friends, I have friends like that. We play basketball all day. When we get tired of playing basketball, we go fishing. Everybody was the same way.
Mm-hmm.
We were just a type, maybe we wasn't God.
Right.
But we were friends. And
Right.
we knew each other's ways and know what to do. And the neighbors of other friends, people would see us coming and say, but we were tight knit.
Right.
So this day, most of them gone now. But it's a few of us, and we still keep in contact. And this is what we're supposed to stay in contact with.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, train up your child in the way, and he will never leave.
Right.
Right. So therefore, hey, we were friends and always be friends. We went our ways or whatever, but we still are friends.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're supposed to keep God there.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You're supposed to bring him up in a way.
But the key thing about you and your friend, you have what? A relationship.
A relationship.
And it didn't come overnight.
That's what
It did not come overnight.
See,
It came through constant, constant fellowshipping with each other.
I would say that too, but I would say it didn't take Moses just them 40 years in the desert. He started went from 1 to 8.
Yeah, 1 to 40.
1 to 40, and then 40 to 8. I mean, days.
Yeah.
It's the whole thing was molded.
Right.
Taught him how to do this, live gently.
Uh-huh.
And then on the other side, rough life. It's not going to be easy. Okay,
Sister Ann.
I was reading it first, but I was reading the Jewish aspect.
Oh, Jewish, yes, okay.
And I found that interesting because it said when Moses approached the burning bush, God specifically told him, put off thy shoes from off thy feet. So the place where thou standest is holy ground. But also he said, before this time no one had removed his shoes when worshiping God. God spoke to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and did not require this act. Moses, however, had grown up in Pharaoh's court. So in other words, he would have known about the customs of pulling off his shoes on holy ground.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, I think I read, was it in here, in the expositor? It's something similar, symbolic-wise, as when men remove their hats when they come into a building. Mm-hmm. Okay? I don't know if it was in this one or was something else I read. I don't know if it was. But, again, I remember reading someplace else, and the expositor said it also, that removing your shoes, you're not bringing in the pollutants that you picked up from outdoors.
Right.
You are now on holy ground. You don't have these different outside pollutants that are coming in. Okay, because, quote, this is holy ground. Okay, but yeah, that's a very good point. Does anyone else have anything they would like to add? Sister Prince?
I like the way God made himself known.
Yeah.
When Moses, it was an attention getter, that burning bush that never was consumed. And when God saw, because in the 4th verse it says, the Lord saw. He's all the time now looking and seeing Moses, how he's reacting. He wants Moses to know that I have a bush here, but this is me. I want you to see me. And he said, when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called unto him. God is identifying himself in the midst of this bush. And when you get down in verse 6, he says, moreover, I am the God of thy father. So there was no doubt who was talking to Moses. The God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac and Jacob.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. He identified, because Moses knew the history.
He
Because
knew
he was,
the history.
just like you said, brought up when he was young. He knew the history. He knew his ancestors. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Let's go to the third one. The third one, the Lord's plan, verses 7 through 9. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of, quote, my people, which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. Okay, I'm going to take that one right by itself, and the first thing I'm going to go is history. Let's go back to Genesis. Genesis 12th chapter, verses 1 through 3, and I use this all the time when I talk to people about Bible prophecy. I talk to them all the time about this, and I said it all goes back. These current events all goes back to Genesis 12, 1 through 3, and I'm going to read them real quickly here. Now the Lord said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee, and I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. Now, even though they're in bondage, because they're in bondage, God's going to get them out of bondage. And he told Abraham that, it was Abraham then. Or was it Abram? I'm not sure right now. I have to look. Yeah, I think it was Abram. He told Abram that, in fact, I'm going to read that too right now. No, I'll read that next. I'm sorry, because I had it broken down. God will bless those that bless his people.
Right.
And if you ask me, which you didn't, but I'm going to put it down there anyway. That's one of the reasons why this country is still blessed. Because we were Israel. We were Israel's biggest benefactor. Okay? Where no one messed around with Israel because we said, leave them alone, basically. All right? Don't mess with these people. And we prospered greatly. Even though we sinned, even though we had all kinds, tons of sins that we did. And I'm talking about abortion. I'm sorry. I'm talking about abortion. I'm talking about all gay marriage. I'm talking about all this crap. All this crap that is, quote, legal now. Even though those things are against God, we still are being blessed because we still honor Israel. And God said He will bless those that bless thee. He's blessed us. He's blessed us. So when I look at that and I just say, thank God. I thank God that we still are favoring Israel. Because if we don't, that's when I think that's be the last straw. Okay, now I'm going to go to the other one, verses 8 and 9. And I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land onto a good land, and a large, onto a land flowing with milk and honey. That's prosperity there. Unto the place of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites. Now, now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel has come unto me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppressed them. Again, the Abrahamic covenant, God will use Moses to fulfill His promises to Abraham. Now, we're still in, if you were still in Genesis, you didn't go back to Exodus. Let's go to Genesis, the 15th chapter. Just four verses there in the 15th chapter, verses 13 through 16. Okay, and this is God speaking. And He said unto Abram, know of a surety that thy seed will be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge. Interesting. He said, I will bless those that bless thee, and curse those that curse thee. And now He's going to judge. And afterwards shall they come out with great substance, and thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace. Thou shalt be buried in a good old age. But in the fourth generation they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. Now, the iniquity of the Ammonites, the Amorites rather, is not full. Now, I'm going to read something that's in the expositor. I thought it went perfectly with that. And that in the teacher's version, it says here on more or less near the bottom of page 50, second column, the various groups that occupied Canaan, generally called Canaanites, were terribly degenerate. Their perverted religious practice had so polluted them that their iniquity was as great as it could be. Their iniquity was full. They worshipped a large number of deities who were characterized by wicked behavior that in turn dictated the behavior of the Canaanites. Their practices included religious prostitution and infant sacrifice. Now, what are we doing here? What are we doing in the United States? We're not sacrificing, but we're killing unborn children. Okay? Pornography. It's prevalent. U.S. is one of the biggest purveyors of pornographic materials, and that's something that I read on one of these spiritual pages, and it's disgusting, and that's another thing. That's another reason why we're going to be judged. However, it hasn't come up yet. But anyway, that's what I was. That's what I wanted to talk about when I said hit the Lord's plan. Anyone have anything else they would like to add to that or ask a question or something? Yes, no? All right, the last one is verse 10, and that is the Lord's call. Come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. Now, he fled from Egypt. Now he's coming back. Now he's coming back. God sends Moses back from where he fled, back to Egypt, to free Israel from bondage. He's not the one that does the freeing. He is leading them through God. God is the one that's going to cause these different things that are going to happen upon the Egyptians. Of course, that last plague is a doozy. But he is the one that is going to show his might. He conquered over all the gods of the Egyptian. They had gods for just about everything. That they prayed to the Nile. They prayed to different animals or whatever, and God answered all of that. All those gods were totally helpless because they were false gods. This is in the expositor, and I thought it was very good to hear. It was crucial for Moses to understand the nature of God, so that he would know the deliverance of Israel was not dependent on him, but upon the God for whom nothing is impossible. This was the final step in Moses' preparation. He possessed the knowledge and experience needed to fulfill his role in God's plan. Think about it. He knew he was learned in all the ways of the Egyptians. He was there for 40 years. He was he learned how to lead dumb sheep. I'm sorry. That's what they turned out to be, basically. He learned how to lead sheep. And that's basically what the children of Israel turned out to be, because they were just wandering. They just did not want to follow him. But he learned how to lead them, and God was the one that taught him how to lead, how to do these things. Now, so he learned. He had 80 years of apprenticeship. 80 years. 80 years. Shoot, he should be retiring by that time, don't you think? But then again, he lived to be 120, so he had to work. That's all. But anyway, it says now he grasped the nature of God behind the plan. He was a God who was perfectly capable of using an 80-year-old fugitive shepherd from Egypt to deliver and lead a great nation of people. And this was basically the beauty about this lesson. It told me that I can't retire. Told me that I can't retire no matter what happens. As long as I'm able to walk and talk and think and everything, I can't retire. I mean, I may be retiring from work, but I got some other work that he may want me to do. I don't know what that is. I'm quite sure I'll find out. But anyway, does anyone have anything they want to add or ask, or anything to add to the lesson? Yes, Sister Brenda.
When God calls, be prepared, and don't forget He's with you. I don't care what you're going through. He's there all the time.
Yeah.
y'all saying, I hear people say, America. God, America. But God, and he wasn't out of Israel, Jews out of Israel. But when he got them, the one that wasn't in God, and he destroyed on the way.
Yeah.
See,
there were a bunch of them that fell by the wayside.
So therefore, we can't count America. We got to count Christians.
Yeah, but again, we're being blessed.
Yeah.
This country is being blessed because of the things that are being done. And I think because there is a righteous, and not our righteousness, but his righteousness, there's a righteous remnant here. I think that's the reason why that we still have quote, strong country.
Yeah, yeah.
That's just Mike. That's just Mike saying it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the way I believe, and I have to believe that because I know it ain't none of our strength. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
there's still a lot of us serving the Lord, and,
Yes.
and through us.
Yes.
There's going to be some change in their ways in due time.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, we got to continue to do what we're doing. You know what I mean?
Yes, but once we are taken out of here.
Yeah.
Once we're taken out of here in a blink of an eye.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't want to be down
That's
here.
right. I get you.
Thank you, Jesus.
Amen.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes.
Okay, with that, I will ask the superintendent to come up and sum up the lesson or add to it.
Praise the Lord.
All right.
We're good.
Exodus was in the lesson.
In verse 8, it reads, "And I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians." This is God speaking. He said he has come down. See, Moses' fear was that it was so much he was going to have to do. But as we said in today's lesson, anything that we do unto the Lord, he's with us. We're not alone. Sometimes we think we are, and that's when fear sets in. But if he called you to do something, he will equip you, and he will be with you, because he is not the author of mess. If it's mess, he's not in it. Somebody else is in it. That one that's,
Yeah.
that's who's in that. So when I look here at our golden text, it reads, "Come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh." Now you know, that probably was the last thing Moses wanted to hear. He figured he had been away from there, and he was, as Deacon Mike said, very comfortable where he was with his father-in-law and his wife and all those dumb sheep. And here it is, the Lord is telling him, "I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt." Exodus 3 and 10. But in this golden text that God drops his bombshell, he would send Moses back to Egypt as the chosen deliverer of his people. And that's what he was preparing Moses for all the time, from the beginning of his life. These 80 years. Moses, who had fled of Pharaoh's wrath, would be the one to personally confront the current Pharaoh. Because remember that other one, he died.
Died, yes.
But the next one that came in line, they said he put some punishment on the children of Israel. That was just as bad or even worse. To appreciate the impact of these words, we have to remember that God's call to Moses came abruptly and without warning. After a 40-year period of seeming aimlessness, following the call, God continued to communicate with Moses, preparing him for the spectacular events that would follow. God again spoke with Moses, reaffirming his covenant relationship with his people and assuring him again that he was completely aware of the cruelty of the Israelites' Egyptian bondage. He would bring them safely to their promised land. The Bible amply illustrates the truth that when God calls someone to accomplish his will, he fully equips, provides, qualifies, and enables that person to complete the task. That's when he calls you. If you call yourself, or you let man call you, you might find yourself in a world of trouble. But make sure that that call comes from God. In what way do you sense a God calling you? Sense God calling you to share in his work of delivering people from the bondage of sin? Do we ever feel like God is using us to call people away from their bondage of sin? God does not make mistakes. He always acts intentionally and purposefully. Make yourself available to be his servant, to his honor and glory. Everything is to the glory of God. It's not for us to try to take his glory, because we can't. Just do his will. And some will listen and some won't. And it's a place in the Bible that tells you when you're doing God's will and people don't want to accept, it says, knock the dust off your feet and keep on moving. And so we have to learn to do his will. He didn't say make nobody do anything.
That's right.
He didn't say shove nothing down anybody's throat. He said do my will so that he can get the glory. And that's what it's all about. So I'm thankful again for this beautiful lesson. I learned a lot from it, and I'm going to keep studying so I can learn even more. And I advise all of us to do the same thing. Stay in this word. There's a lot of good things in here. And it's all for us. So that we can be that image. We need to be an image of God.
Amen.
And the only way we can learn and grow to be that image is to stay in his word. Now, sis, did I see your hand up there?
No.
No. Okay, so with that, I'm going to ask Deacon Prince to dismiss the class.
Well, Heavenly Father, once again, we come here, Lord, thanking you for another beautiful lesson, Lord, that you gave us this morning, Lord. Continue to open up our hearts, Lord. I say over and over again, to open up our hearts and free our minds so we receive the word of God, Lord, and touch the teachers, Lord. Keep them girded up in the word also, they can teach and guide us, Lord. That's all just blessed in your son. Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
God.